friends, if you're new to Deception Bytes, hit the like and subscribe button and be sure to hit the bell to be notified of future videos. If you wish to support the channel, the links are in the description below. Now, fasten your seatbelt. Here we go. Okay, it is Sunday, January 6th, and it's 7:59 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope everyone is doing well. We do have Q-Post to go over, so that's good news, and we're going to get right into that. But first, I wanted to ask that you forgive me for the sounds in the background because I have a cat, a kitten actually, that is the most destructive little ball of fur that this world has ever seen. It has chewed through all my wires, everything, and I went to the pet food store and got it some chewy things and like little dried fish and things like that that it can chew on, but it's doing so loudly. So if you hear something in the background, that's what it is. This channel has cats, okay? I don't know. I know not everybody likes cats, but you know, this channel has cats. So anyway, let's go on to the Q post here because I know that's what you're really here for. You're not here to hear about my kitten. So this is the first one dropped today, and the Q starts it off by letting us know what it's going to be about, and that is Ruth, or who it's going to be about, and that is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So he asks, why was she selected? Well, she was selected because of her history and her extremely liberal views, and we will see that in a minute. Who appointed her? Interestingly enough, it was Bill Clinton. No surprise there, and she's been in office ever since. Remember her history. Reference 230-page book called Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, published in 1977 by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, highlights. So she called for the sex integration of prisons and reformatories so that conditions of imprisonment, security, and housing could be equal. She explained if the grand design of such institutions is to prepare inmates for return to the community as persons equipped to benefit from and contribute to civil society, then perpetuation of single-sex institutions should be rejected. Page 101. And you know, if that ever came to be and the prisons were both male and female, we know the inmates that would be the ones getting raped. It's the women. So I just don't think that that was well thought out whatsoever. Probably why it's never been adopted. She also called for sex integration of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts because they perpetuate stereotyped sex roles. That was on page 145 of this 230-page book called Sex Bias in the U.S. Code. She also insisted on sex integrating college fraternity and sorority chapters and replacing them with college social societies. That was on page 169. She cast constitutional doubt on the legality of Mother's Day and Father's Day as separate holidays. That was on page 146. She called for reducing the age of consent for sexual acts to people who are less than 12 years old. That was page 102. She asserted that laws against bigamists, persons cohabitating with more than one woman, and women cohabitating with a bigamist are unconstitutional. And that is from page 195. She objected to laws against prostitution because prostitution as a consensual act between adults is arguably within the zone of privacy protected by recent constitutional decisions. That from page 97. Ginsburg wrote that the Mann Act, which punishes those who engage in interstate sex traffic of women and girls, is offensive. Such acts should be considered within the zone of privacy. Page 98. So I guess as far as she's concerned, if you are trafficking young girls or women over state lines, that is within your zone of privacy and it's no one's business. I bet you those underage girls would beg to differ. Now, she demanded that we firmly reject draft or combat exemption for women, stating women must be subject to the draft if men are. But she added The need for affirmative action and for transition measures is particularly strong in the uniformed services. That from page 218. An I can never pronounce this word. Defatigable. I used to have a slight speech impediment growing up, and in some words it comes out very strongly. Censor Ginsburg listed hundreds of sexist words that must be eliminated from all statutes. Among words she found offensive were man, woman, man-made, mankind, husband, wife, mother, father, sister, brother, son, daughter, serviceman, longshoreman, postmaster, watchman, seamanship, and to man a vessel. Page 15-16. Wanted he, she, him, her, his, and hers to be dropped down the memory hole. They must be replaced by he, she, her, him, and hers, and his. And federal statutes must use the bad grammar of plural constructions to avoid third-person singular pronouns. Page 52-53. That is absolutely asinine, ludicrous. She condemned the Supreme Court's ruling in Harris versus McRae and claimed that taxpayer-funded abortions should be a constitutional right. And Q has provided us with a link here. So I'm going to just finish this little part, and then we're going to look at the link, and it does continue. This is a very long, I believe it continues, maybe not. No, I guess we're close to the end of it, but we still have some things to look at to understand it all. So who are the doctors currently treating Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Well, as far as I've been able to find out, she was in the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and I believe that is in Boston, if I'm not mistaken. And it's kind of an interesting place, but we will look at that. Who are the doctors currently treating her? Well, I could not find a single doctor's name. I found some doctors that had been speaking about her condition. And by the way, several months ago, if you remember, well, it wasn't that long ago. It might have been several weeks ago. She had a fall and she broke her ribs. Well, they're now saying that that was probably lucky because they were able to find cancer in her lungs, and she underwent an operation to remove part of the lobe of one of her lungs because it had cancerous growths on it. So that is what she was in the hospital for. She has now since gone home, from what I understand, or what's been reported in the news. What other political, former, current, senior political heads are they affiliated with? Now, I'm not sure. I have been looking at this. I've looked at several articles about them, and I cannot find that. If you guys know offhand, please let me know. You may have gone out and heard other people decoding drops today, and maybe somebody has come across this information, which I've not been able to find at this point. What off-market drugs are being provided to Ruth Bader Ginsburg in order to sustain minimum daily function? Again, I could not find that information. I don't know, but it may actually, when we look into these links, it may be provided there. What is the real medical diagnosis of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Well, I believe it's cancer. She's got cancer. She's had cancer previously. She's had cancerous growths removed in her body, and now it has spread to her lungs. So I would imagine that her real medical diagnosis is cancer. Who is managing her care? Again, I'm not sure, but I know her nephew actually was the one to speak to press about her condition, but whether he is managing her care or not, I don't know. And then he asks who is really managing her care. The clock is ticking. Panic in DC. Q. Now we know that they do not want anything to happen to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Nobody. Nobody on the Democrat side, nobody on the liberal side wants anything to happen to her because she is an ace in the hole for them. And we know that if she is no longer able to fulfill her duties, that Trump gets to pick another Supreme Court So another justice to the Supreme Court. So there you go. That is what they are afraid of. They are deathly afraid of that. Now let's go to the link that Q has provided us here and take a look. All right. Senators overlooked radical record of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Hypocrisy stands at the pinnacle of the sins that liberals most disdain, so it's fair game to compare the free ride they gave to U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg with their searching the archives to pillory every word ever written by Supreme Court nominee John Roberts. Liberal commentators and U.S. senators who are salivating at the upcoming interrogation of Roberts never asked Ginsburg about her extremist views spelled out in her lengthy paper trail. The senators didn't have much research. The senators didn't have to do much research. I made it easy for them by publishing her words in my July 1993 Phyllis Schlafly report. I quoted extensively from her 230-page book called Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, published in 1977 by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. The purpose of the book was to show how the proposed Equal Right Amendment, for which she was an aggressive advocate, would change federal laws to make them sex neutral and eliminate sex discriminatory provisions. Ginsburg called for the sex integration of prisons and reformatories so that conditions of imprisonment could be equal. Now, I'm not going to read through this part of it because Q has already pulled that part of the article out for us to look at and to concentrate on. So I'm going to come down here further. Okay. In a speech published by Phi Beta Kappa's key reporter in 1974, Ginsburg called for affirmative action hiring quotas for career women. Using the police as an example, she wrote, "Affirmative action is called for in this situation. It's too bad that Americans were denied the entertainment value of a C-SPAN broadcast of a Senate Judiciary Committee interrogation of Ginsburg about her out-of-the-mainstream views, but Republicans rolled over and Ginsburg was confirmed 97-3. Liberals are trying to make a federal case out of Roberts' membership or non-membership in the Federalist Society, but Ginsburg has been a general counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union, which, unlike the Federalist Society, litigates to bring about leftist and even radical goals." Tim Russert posed the pertinent question on Meet the Press after showing a clip of Clinton saying he would appoint only Supreme Court justices who believe in the constitutional right to privacy, including the right to choose. Russert added, "Doesn't George Bush, as a Republican, have the same opportunities as Bill Clinton, the Democrat, to put people on the court who share his philosophy?" So that is, speaking about some of her views, her radical views, and that these were not unknown at the time that she was confirmed. So let's go back to Q. And so she was at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. And let's take a look at that because in looking about in kind of researching it and wondering what the deal was about where she was being treated, I happened to find a few articles. We're not going to look at many of them, but I did want to show you a couple quickly. We're not going to read everything. Top official at Memorial Sloan Kettering resigns after failing to disclose industry ties. Dr. Jose Bazalga, the hospital's chief medical officer, stepped down days after a report by ProPublica and the New York Times that he failed to disclose millions of dollars in payments from the healthcare and drug industry in research articles. That's pretty major. And let me see here. The chief medical officer of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center resigned on Thursday amid reports that he had failed to disclose millions of dollars in payments from healthcare companies in dozens of research articles. The revelations about Bazalga's disclosure lapses reported by the New York Times and ProPublica last weekend have rocked Memorial Sloan Kettering, one of the nation's leading cancer centers, in recent days. Its top executives scrambled to contain the fallout, including urgent meeting of physician leaders and the executive committee of its board of directors. I did look at its board of directors. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary there. There were no names that just kind of jumped out at me, but one never knows. We'll see what other people uncover over the next few days about this place. I don't know. Maybe some of you guys know, and if you do, please put it in the comments below, because many of us combed through those comments. Now, in his resignation letter released Thursday, he Basilga, who also served as physician-in-chief, said he feared that the matter would be distraction from his role overseeing clinical care, and that he had been extremely proud to work at Memorial Sloan Kettering. So there has been some scandal there. There's this, and let me see the other link that I have here. Yeah, it's much the same, but it might couch it in slightly different terms. Facing crisis, Sloan Kettering tells executive to hand over profits from biotech. A vice president at Memorial Sloan Kettering received a stake of nearly 1.4 billion, or million rather, in a biotech company for representing the hospital on its board. He will give back his stake as the cancer center grapples with questions about conflicts of interest. So that was really the only thing that I turned, I mean, it's pretty major, but it's the only thing I turned up about the hospital. So I don't know. Certainly Q is pointing us towards something, and probably, you know, there's obviously something there to look at that I'm not seeing, and maybe you guys are. I mean, certainly this is, you know, it's important if Q brought it up. Let's just put it that way. It's important, and there is something here, but what exactly is here beyond the stuff that's really, you know, quite easy to see, I'm not sure. There's got to be something going on with the way she's being treated, or whatever, but I know that they are probably not exposing her true condition to the news, because the liberals want her to hang on as long as possible. I mean, I think honestly, it might even get to the point of a Weekend at Bernie's Place. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. It was a horrible movie. I hated it, but I can't remember even why I saw it. I was probably with someone seeing it, but you know, they prop up this dead guy to look like he's alive during the whole weekend, and I could see them having to do something like that with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Sorry, that's in very, very poor taste, but let's move on. All right, and here we are at the next post or drop by Q today. And again, he's making reference to Scaramucci model, which we've heard him do that before. And he says, public opinion, optics do not matter. So that's interesting, because in the past he has said that optics do matter. So why do they not matter now? Attempts can be dangerous to those who are targeted. And he's talking about people that are brought into a role temporarily, like Scaramucci, who was brought into his role, and I think he lasted just slightly over a week, but while he was there, he had a job to do. And so that is what they are talking about, or that's what Q is talking about. And let's go to look at the link that he's provided for us. All right. Trump says appointing acting cabinet heads grants more flexibility. So let's see what this has to say. And when was this in the news? 8 hours ago. So President Trump told reporters outside the White House on Sunday that he's in no hurry to replace his acting cabinet secretaries with formal replacements, saying, "I have acting and my actings are doing really great. I sort of like acting. It gives me more flexibility. Do you understand that?" You gotta love Trump, honestly, seriously. "I have acting and my actings are doing really great. I sort of like acting. It gives me more flexibility. Do you understand that?" Why it matters. Trump's Attorney General, Secretaries of Defense and Interior, EPA head, and UN ambassador are all working in acting capacities despite being Senate-confirmed positions. The appointment of Matthew Whitaker as acting Attorney General in particular came under fire, as Washington Post reported this week that Patrick Shanahan's position as acting defense secretary could also be constitutionally murky. Furthermore, Trump, who campaigned on draining the swamp, faced criticism for his acting secretary's lobbying ties. Cabinet of Donald Trump. The dueling narratives of Apple and Nike's fourth quarter. Is this actually a different? Yes, it is a different. It's a different one. I guess this is all that there is on this. And I was going on to another article. So, and Q brings us back and says, he shows us that article about the acting heads, and then he says, Scaramucci model? Well, yeah, he's not asking a question here. He's telling us it's a Scaramucci model. Yeah, and let's go take a quick look at this. This is not a Q link, but it will help us to understand a little bit better. Some people are newly following this, and I feel bad for them because they've got a lot of catching up to do to understand everything that's happened in the last year. But Anthony Scaramucci fired from the White House after 10 days. So he was only there 10 days, and he was brought in to do a job. The appointment itself on the 21st of July triggered a shakeup at the Trump White House. Chief of Staff Reince Priebus and spokesman Sean Spicer both left their posts over his hiring, which was probably... they were probably targeted to leave. Then, just a week after being named, he launched a strongly worded attack on Mr. Priebus, calling him a paranoid schizophrenic. In a conversation with a reporter in the same phone call, he also directed profanity-laced insults at chief strategist Steve Bannon. Mr. Scaramucci later tweeted his regret at the colorful language, but the damage had already been done. In the same week, reports also emerged that his wife, Deidre Ball, had filed for divorce. The New York Post said she was fed up with his naked political ambition. He also missed the birth of his son. Okay, well, that's his private life. It has nothing to do with him being in office. So Mr. Scaramucci, 53, spent much of his 10 days in the job railing against government leakers. Perhaps ironically, the New York Times, one of the first U.S. media outlets to report his dismissal, relied on 3 unnamed sources close to the decision to break the story. Yeah, one of those was probably Adam Schiff. Anyway, Schiff is he's a leaker. He's just a leaky guy. All right, so that is what he means by the Scaramucci model. Somebody coming in short term to do some cleanup, and then they're out. And let's go on to the next one. And Q asks us, how many authorized FISA umbrella surveillance warrants it's okay, I'll be able to read shortly. How many authorized FISA umbrella surveillance warrants targeting those who illegally targeted blank are currently active? Upstream collection can be very revealing. When you no longer control the levers of power, do Five Eye allies buckle and cooperate in order to preserve and maintain their future? Germany losing stranglehold on EU? The future will not repeat the past. The clock is ticking. Q. Now, it's interesting because he's asking how many of these FISA umbrella surveillance warrants targeting those who illegally targeted POTUS and Papadopoulos and Carter Page. How many are currently active? And remember Q pointed out to us not that long ago that it works both ways, right? Because they were trying to spy on POTUS, and but because of the umbrella surveillance, which means, okay, if they're targeting me and I have friends that I'm in frequent contact with, or business associates or whatever, they can target them as well. So even though I'm the target, they could target my friends, my family, whoever I come in contact with on a daily basis or weekly basis or what have you. So, but it works both ways, because now they are able to do the same thing. If these FISA warrants are still open, don't they both work both ways? That's what Q told us. It can work both ways. So yeah, they were spying on him, but now they are able to spy on those members of the deep state that instituted this. So that's my understanding. If I'm incorrect, please put it in the comments below. I am very open to correction, and certainly I am less concerned with my whatever can't even think of the word, than I am about getting it right. Okay, I don't care about my reputation per se. I care more about getting it right. All right, so, and Q is saying upstream collection can be very revealing, and that's what that is, that umbrella, it's upstream collection, because you're not just collecting from who the target is, but everybody that, they're in contact with, and then everybody that those people are in contact with, and I don't know how far it goes out before they say, okay, enough's enough, we don't need this, to be targeting these people out here. I don't know. But anyway, that is what he's talking about. And he's saying when you no longer control the levers of power, do Five Eye allies buckle? And I would assume that he's asking that, but he's telling us that they will. Because we know that our allies were involved in this spying as well, because Q has told us that in the past. So there you go. And we're going to go on here. And we have the next one is just a link to a tweet, and Q asks us, Anon's new? Q, oh yeah, Anon's new. So let's go see what Q is telling us that the Anon's already knew. It's this: President Trump, I may declare a national emergency dependent on what's going to happen on the next few days. Interesting that he doesn't say happen in the next few days. He says on the next few days. That's kind of an odd thing, but let's listen. No, really, let's listen.
I may declare a national emergency dependent on what's going to happen over the next few days. We have a meeting. Vice President Pence and a group will be going to a certain location that you know where that is. And they'll be having another meeting. I don't expect to have anything happen at that meeting, but I think we'll have, nor does the Vice President, but I think we're going to have some very serious talks come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We have to have border security. If we don't have border security, we're going to be crime-ridden, and it's going to get worse and worse.
Yes, absolutely, and I know we all agree with that. We all want the wall. I don't know, probably nobody that listens to me is against the wall, I would think. I think we're all for it, and I have now included in all of my videos the link in the description to fund the wall. So if you have $3, $5, $2, $1, whatever you have, maybe you have more, then give towards the wall. I have not given yet, but I am going to be within the next couple days, and I think that what I'd like to do is just keep continuing throwing a little bit of money at it here and there, because you know what, it's easy, like the price of a coffee, and if I do that several times, it adds up, and if we all do it, it really adds up. I mean, I think we're close to 20 million right now, so that's a lot of money that have been raised by the US people. That should send a very clear message to Washington, but really, the Democrats don't care. They don't care what we think. They don't care what we want. They think that their will should preside, and they really don't care about the people that elected them into those positions. Let's go back and see what Q has to say next. All right. So, and there was, hang on here, I'm going to take you over here. I had it under my news section that I was collecting, but I think it's pertinent, and if I can find it real fast, I want to show you something right here. Donald Trump 22 hours ago tweeted this picture: the wall is coming. So any of us that have any doubt, it's coming, it's gonna be built. And I think that this whole thing, just like we spoke about yesterday, it was all just a ruse for the Democrats to show their hinder parts, which is what they've done, and made themselves look foolish. So, well played, President Trump. Well played. All right, let's go up to the next one. And this is a very large post. I believe it is the last post, if I'm not mistaken. It is. Now, that doesn't mean that Q will not continue to post. He may, and if he does, I will try to bring that to you this evening as well. All right, so this post will bring us up to date with the posts, and Q says, when will the public discover that Ted Cruz was also illegally surveilled pre-POTUS Republican nomination? Well, that's news. That's news. I didn't know that. Did you know that? That Ted Cruz, before POTUS won the Republican nomination, that they were also illegally surveilling Ted Cruz. That's news. CIA illegal surveillance members of Congress. CIA illegal surveillance members of the press. CIA illegal surveillance Senate Intel Committee. Now, even though these are couched as questions, we know that these are statements. Q is telling us that members of Congress were surveilled. Members of the press were surveilled. Senate Intel Committee was surveilled. Ted Cruz was surveilled. Now, we've got some links here that we're going to investigate, but I'm going to finish this part first. Who ordered the surveillance? What classification was provided to authorize surveillance of elected officials? Surveillance fall under the scope of FISA warrant or internal to department or outsourced to Five Eye. Reality check. Friend or foe? We all spy on each other. Should we be spying on ourselves? Should we be tasking others to spy on ourselves in order to avoid U.S. law? Because we know that's what Five Eye does. You know, Five Eyes, Canada, Australia, who else? Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. Canada, United States. Okay, there's another one. Anyway, so what they do is, I guess, Britain. So anyway, what they do is, you know, Canadians won't spy on their own citizens, but you know, the other countries involved in Five Eyes nations, then they can spy on Canadians and let the Canadian government know, and that way they get around the laws, and that's what they do. So, you know, Q is asking us, should we be doing this? Well, no, I don't think we should. I really don't. But I don't know. I don't know how to get around that. How do you dissemble that? I don't know. But let's look at these links that Q wants us to look at. This one from The Guardian. Very interesting article. A constitutional crisis, the CIA turns on the Senate. And when was this? This was from the 10th of September, 2016. Tensions flare between the CIA and the Senate in the fight to release the report on torture, leading the agency to spy on its own legislative overseers. Support The Guardian's fearless journalism by making contribution, blah, blah, blah. It was 11 p.m. in the chill of January, but Daniel Jones needed a run around the Capitol. During the winter of early 2014, Jones' only chance for serenity was these late hours. The CIA was demanding his boss, Senate Intelligence Committee Chairwoman Dianne Feinstein, fire him. Feinstein's Republican colleagues, once supportive of Jones, were demanding he testify. Testimony was treacherous. Sheldon Whitehouse, a Rhode Island senator and former federal prosecutor, warned Jones that asserting his rights against self-incrimination or seeking a lawyer's counsel could give committee Republicans a political lever against his highly controversial work. The CIA would soon formally insist that the U.S. Justice Department actually prosecute Jones, the Senate staffer who had devoted over 6 years of his life to investigating the CIA's infamous post-9/11 torture program. Jones, a former FBI counterterrorism analyst, wanted to testify. The CIA had pushed him past the point where he could back down. It lies its lies documented in a 6,700-page secret report, which Jones was constantly rewriting that winter, were compounding to Congress, to Barack Obama, to George W. Bush, to the press, to the public. The lies were not random misstatements. They were directional in the service of covering up the brutality of what it did to at least 119 terrorist suspects, some clearly innocent, it held in a global network of secret prisons. Jones was on the verge of exposing the cover-up, and he saw it. The personalized intensities of the CIA's attack on him and the unprecedented steps they were taking validated the account he had compiled after combining over 6 million classified CIA documents. Jones put his Bose earbuds in, queued up a tragically hip record, and ran. It couldn't be that long of a lap, just enough to clear his head and work the frustrations out. Jones would need to be back in the Senate Intelligence Committee secured classified offices very soon. Each day brought a new calculation. It might be the last that the committee had access to its own classified report. The CIA had gone into war mode with its congressional overseers, Jones told The Guardian. There were no choice but to work deeply into the night, leaving Capitol Hill at 3 or 4 in the morning, with breaks only for a run, and then back to work by 8 or 9 to repeat the cycle. Less than a year had passed since the CIA had communicated to the Senate that its exhaustive torture report, drawn from millions of the agency's own documents, was significantly incorrect. Less than a year had passed since Jones, unbeknownst to the CIA, had locked in a committee safe crucial portions of one such record called the Panetta Review, in which the CIA had come to the same conclusions about torture as Jones had, but now the agency was letting the committee know it was not playing around and that it was coming for Jones himself. From August to September 2013, Jones had more than a dozen meetings with agency officials lasting 60 hours to attempt to reconcile their objections with findings in his 6,700-page classified report. It got to the point where Jones would take a whiteboard with him. That way he could sketch out the timelines he found in the CIA cables for when the agency learned specific aspects of its terrorism intelligence. He attempted to demonstrate contradictions by what the CIA said publicly and how the claimed basis for those CIA statements occurred before this or that torture session the agency said was the genesis of the information. It should be noted that at no point in those discussions did Senate staff ask CIA to reconcile the CIA June 2013 response to the Panetta Review, said CIA spokesman Ryan Trapani. In fact, at no time in those discussions did committee staff indicate that they had a copy of the Panetta Review. In September 2013, Jones told Feinstein that continuing such fact-free discussions was pointless. Feinstein was concerned Jones was too close to the reports to be objective, but she backed his decision. With the report stuck in limbo, she gave him a new challenge: redo the report, incorporating aspects of the CIA's response and putting what they found to be wrong about that response in the footnotes. Basically, her thing was make them own their response, Jones says. The effect was to expand a 250-page executive summary to over 500 pages, doubling the amount of information, all as the CIA continued to object. The agency and the committee were arraying for battle. Just before Thanksgiving, Feinstein formally wrote to CIA Director John Brennan requesting the entire 1,000-page Panetta Review. Jones had not taken the full document back from the satellite location, only the sections necessary to show busy senators that the agency concluded it had misled its political masters about the futility of its torture. The CIA said it would not provide it. This time it would be Feinstein's allies on the committee who escalated. On 17th of December, the CIA sent its choice for its next top lawyer, Carolyn Krass, to the committee for a nomination hearing. Shortly before the hearing, a CIA attorney, Darren Hostler, met with Jones in private, once again sparring over the agency's response. Once again, Jones reminded Hostetler that Panetta Review supported his conclusions. "I'm done talking to you, Dan," Hostler said, ending the meeting. An agency official who worked with Jones at the satellite location apologized to Jones for Hostler's behavior. During the hearing, This is very long, but it's something that Q has provided us. So I think it's important that we go over this to understand exactly what Q is telling us. So during the hearing, Mark Udall, a Colorado Democrat, lit into crass. Unexpectedly, Udall mentioned the existence of the Panetta Review in public for the first time, demanding the disclosure of the document. Among the reason for Udall's fervor, in August 2013, after the CIA had condemned the committee report in contradiction of the Panetta Review, its former chief lawyer, Stephen Preston, told Udall in writing that the agency provided the committee with inaccurate information related to aspects of the torture program, a major point the CIA was now disputing. Jones was visible on the staff. Diaz, behind Udall, Hostler, walked out of the hearing. Then things totally went to hell, Jones said. Unbeknownst to Jones, Udall, or Feinstein, the public reference to the Panetta Review so alarmed the CIA as to prompt a milestone event in its history. Since 2009, the CIA has maintained a firewalled network on which the Senate could review internal documents relevant to its torture inquiry. It was known as RDI-Net, for rendition, detention, and interrogation. By mutual agreement, the CIA was not supposed to access the Senate side of the network for any reason aside from pecuniary help, but at least 5 agency officials would surreptitiously transgress the network firewalls, view the Senate's investigators' work, and reconstruct Jones' emails. Their rationale, established in a subsequent internal investigation, was to determine if the Senate deliberately exploited an evident flaw in the architecture of the network to digitally acquire the Panetta Review, which they did not want the Senate to have. It was an extreme step after Congress overhauled the CIA in the 1970s. The agency was not supposed to spy on Americans. Now we're getting to the crux of all of this. It was an extreme step after Congress overhauled the CIA in the 1970s. The agency was not supposed to spy on Americans domestically except in extremely circumscribed circumstances. Now it was turning its spy network onto the elected officials tasked with overseeing it. Every officer is clearly, I would say rigorously, trained that CIA is a foreign intelligence service. We have a legal mandate to conduct intelligence operations on non-American entities. It's very clear the distinction, and then elaborate the working out of what may and may not be done, said Glenn Carl, a retired CIA officer. Carl continued, for the agency to penetrate a firewall network used by the United States Senate is flat criminal activity. There's no discussion about it. I'm literally laughing. You can't rationalize that. Oregon Democratic Senator Ron Wyden flatly called it spying on our staff. The CIA vigorously disputes that characterization. CIA Director Brennan, whom Carl praises as an honorable guy, was informed about the firewall breach almost as soon as the agency began its fateful operations. Beginning on 9th of January 2014, agency officials created a dummy account that looked to the network like it came from Jones' team, something beyond the limits of the 2009 agreement between the committee and the CIA about network access. They logged in, searched for the Panetta Review on their Senate side of the network, and found it. The next day, they searched their own side to determine if they had the Panetta Review. They didn't find it. Presumed they might have been hacked, and set to find out what happened. They took screenshots of what they found, yet never once did they discuss their findings with Jones, whose technical ineptitude might have disabused them of the theory that he had either deliberately hacked a classified network or been savvy enough to exploit a vulnerability. Wow, this is a very long, and I'm not sure if I want to continue reading all this because it's a lot. Let me see if we can kind of surmise. The CIA was turning its spy work into the elected officials tasked with overseeing it. That is one. Let me see down here. From a report released by the CIA Inspector General. Yeah, this is a lot to read. So I'm going to put this link in the description. obviously it can be accessed through the Q drops as well, but just for easier access, I'll put it in the description as well so that you can go out and see what what it's all about. I think Q is telling us that basically we are at war with the CIA and that they have overstepped their boundaries. And that's something that Q, even a year ago, was telling us, that they were not supposed to be spying on U.S. citizens. So I don't know. There's a lot here, and I'm going to have to read through this and summarize it. I did not realize how long this was when I started it, but it's an extremely long article. But I think it's important, and I am going to read through it and see if I can kind of, make a synopsis. So let's go back and see what Q has to say here. And he's got another link here for us to go out to. So let's look at that, see if it's maybe a little shorter, hopefully. Well, somewhat shorter. I'm not going to read all of this, but it's obviously along the same lines. Inquiry by CIA affirms it spied on Senate panel. And this is from 2014, July 31st. Washington, an internal investigation by the CIA has found that its officers penetrated a computer network used by the Senate Intelligence Committee in preparing its damning report on the CIA's detention and interrogation program. The report by the agency's Inspector General also found that CIA officers read the emails of the Senate investigators and sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department based on false information, according to a summary of findings made public on Thursday. One official with knowledge of the report's conclusion said the investigation also discovered that the officers created a false online identity to gain access on more than one occasion to computers used by the committee staff. The Inspector General's account of how the CIA secretly monitored a congressional committee charged with supervising its activities touched off angry criticism from members of the Senate and amounted to vindication for Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, the committee's Democratic chairwoman, who excoriated the CIA in March when the agency monitoring of committee investigators became public. So yeah, they were actually spying on those people that were tasked with investigating them. So yeah, that's not good. And again, I'm not going to go down all through this. I think we get the gist of what Q is trying to tell us here. And that is that the CIA illegally surveilled members of Congress, members of the press, and Senate Intel Committee, and he's proven it with two news articles. So he says, who ordered the surveillance? What justification was provided to authorize surveillance of elected officials? Well, obviously they were trying to keep them, in this case, they were trying to surveil them because they were going to be releasing things that were damning to them, damning to the CIA and to their torture program. So now who would have authorized that? I don't know. Probably the head of the CIA, maybe even Obama. I don't know. Reality check, friend or foe. We all spy on each other. Should we be spying on ourselves? Should we be tasking others to spy on ourselves in order to avoid U.S. law? No, we should not. Was Five Eye established and designed by the Intel Committee as a back-channel surveillance apparatus to avoid domestic laws, triggers, and congressional Senate oversight? Yes. And Q has told us that as much in the past. He has said that that is exactly what it was, because it's not legal for the U.S. to spy on the U.S., but it's legal for Canada to spy on the U.S. or Britain or Australia or New Zealand. They can spy, but not the U.S., and then they can pass that information along. Well, really, what is the difference? It's really the same thing. It's just a technicality, and they are, in fact, trying to avoid the law. So what key logs exist to monitor Five Eye intel collection? What ability do former government officials have regarding ability to access sea-level Five Eye offshore data? Well, remember, we discussed this a long while ago, that Hillary had gone to New Zealand or Australia, maybe both, and was probably collecting data because she could, she can collect data on U.S. citizens over there, but she can't here. And so they do have that ability. Former government officials with certain clearance do have that ability to go overseas and to access the data that they have on American citizens. How did Hillary Rodham Clinton gain access to highest classified standard SAP special access programs, closed system access, and able to transfer to remote home server? The question above should scare every single American. And really, it should. How did she gain access to the highest classified special access programs, which is a closed system access, and be able to transfer them to her remote home server? Probably through the Five Eyes system, if that's what I am understanding him to say. Now, if I am not understanding that correctly and you guys understand, in a different way, or, have a better grip on this, then please put it in the comments below, because we all, look through those and comb through those. So this question should scare everybody. How did China locate primary CIA assets within China? 187. Well, they were killed. China was able to locate primary CIA assets because of Hillary Clinton and because of what was on her server. She probably gave them access for a price, pay to play, and I can't remember, it was over 10 CIA assets were killed in China. They were murdered. So that's on her head. You can add that to the already, I don't know, I'd like to say dozens of people she's killed, but it's probably up into the hundreds, I would assume. Money buys power. Yes, it does. No punishment. Brennan by Hussein administration regarding surveillance of Senate, etc. No, because he probably ordered it. No, he wasn't going to punish Brennan. So, no, there was no punishment at all. Logical thinking. Why? Well, because he's in on it. He was in on it. He's not that stupid. He's inept, but he's not stupid. And only inept because he tried, he was successful in what he was doing, which was to pull down America, sell us down the river. I mean, he was successful in that way. Anyway, let's see here. We've got another link here that Q has given us, so let's go take a look at that. Justice declines to pursue allegations that CIA monitored Senate intel staff. Why? The Justice Department has decided not to pursue accusations that the CIA spied on the Senate Intelligence Committee and allegations that committee staff slipped classified documents from a secure agency facility, McClatchy has confirmed. The department carefully reviewed the matters referred to us and did not find sufficient evidence to warrant a criminal investigation, said Justice Department spokesman Peter Carr. The news marks an apparent end to an extraordinary feud that spilled into the public forum in early March over the committee's report on the agency's post 9/11 enhanced interrogation program. The dispute included competing Justice Department referrals, with both the CIA and the Senate Intelligence Committee accusing the other side of criminal conduct through the course of the interrogation study. Intelligence Committee Chair Dianne Feinstein, California, took to the Senate floor in early March and accused the CIA of spying on the computers her committee staff used to create the study. The CIA accused Feinstein's staff of slipping classified documents from secure agency facilities and transporting them back to Capitol Hill. The CIA Inspector General's office referred the agency's alleged computer monitoring to the Justice Department. The CIA filed a crimes report against several committee staffers, accusing them of removing classified information from a secure facility. And in addition, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid ordered the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms to conduct an independent investigation into the alleged computer hacking. The fate of the congressional investigation is unknown, but it seems that the details of both sides' accusations will never be publicly aired, leaving simmering tensions and a battered relationship. Although fury flooded Capitol Hill in the immediate aftermath of the dispute, the incident seemed to have largely faded from memory, despite its enormous potential implications on the constitutional balances of balance of powers. The nearly 500-page executive summary of the committee's still classified 6,600-page report is expected to be released in the coming months. A CIA spokesman declined to comment. And when was this written? This was written in July 2014. So let's go back to Q. And he said, Justice Department declines to pursue. Fake news media limits exposure to public. When did @Snowden breach NSA and publicly release, cripple intel gathering ability? NSA. NSA targeted? Yes, of course. That's what Snowden was targeting, is the NSA. Where did @Snowden work prior to NSA contractor, except what senior level government CIA official received Snowden for NSA contractor off TAR position? Post public release of classified NSA Pro Uranium-1. Where is @Snowden today? Russia, as far as we know. What country was involved in Uranium-1? Russia. If a real target country was Venezuela or Ecuador, why didn't Snowden take a direct flight from Hong Kong to those locations? That's a good question, and one that Q has asked in the past. How many direct flights run daily from Hong Kong to VNE? If Snowden was CIA, NSA, would he not understand simple logic? Going public prior to end destination safety would limit active passport travel ability due to block deregulation. Why wouldn't Snowden publicly release info after he already was safely at final destination? And those are good questions, and they're questions that Q's asked us before. Like, if his final destination was Venezuela or Ecuador, then why didn't he take a flight from Hong Kong there? Because he knew that once this was out, his passport would get shut down and he would be, effectively trapped wherever he is, which my understanding is Russia that he's at right now. So why then would Snowden route through Russia? Was Russia the final destination? Was Russia the final destination? And Q asks us again, so this is very important. Was Russia the true destination? So really, he's asking questions, but they're not questions. He's already telling us, which he's told us in the past, that Russia was the destination. This was all planned. He was targeted. He was CIA before he was NSA, so he did have a background in this, and he specifically targeted the NSA. And from what we understand, Q considers him a criminal, but does not consider Assange a criminal. So, and I know that those are questions in our mind, because I thought Snowden was probably a good guy until Q, and I started really looking into it. So I don't know. Could Snowden be releasing classified programs, intel from inside of Russia? Yes, absolutely he could be. Is Q telling us that he is? Perhaps. That's perhaps exactly what he's telling us. What role did Brennan play in the @Snowden leaks regarding NSA? What was Brennan's background regarding Saudi Arabia? Does the CIA hold blackmail on political leaders? Yes, we already know that. They do. They blackmail political leaders. Does the CIA protect those who protect them? Yes. Why are ex-CIA contractors running for office? Well, I think that answers itself. How many ex-CIA contractors are currently in office? I don't know, but it's interesting that he says, hello, Adam Schiff, once an agent, always an agent. So obviously, Adam Schiff is one of those former agents. And unfortunately, I don't know all of the answers to these questions. Perhaps some of you do. And if you do, put it in the comments below. But we're entering unprecedented times here. We really are. The whole fact that Trump is going to go ahead with that wall despite what Congress says, that's really big. It's big. Now, I agree with it because it is an issue of national security. I don't think anybody would argue that. So I think that it's great. But we are really entering unprecedented times here. And I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I keep reading the Q posts just like you do and keep looking for clues as to what our future is going to hold. But I don't know. I think the next few months are going to be very, very telling in a lot of ways. So anyway, I'm going to close for this evening. I may be back with another video. At least I'm planning on being back with another video. So you guys have a great night. Stay safe. Stay blessed. Hope you rest well and enjoy the rest of your evening before tomorrow, Monday. And many of you will be off to work in the morning. So I hope you sleep well, rest well, and I will talk to you guys real soon. Thank you so much.